Hi, I'm Kate. This is my channel, and this is my currently reading for the week. I've done a fair bit of book-related things this week, so I'm excited to talk about them. First thing I want to talk about is The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat by Oliver Sacks. I finished this book this week, finally, and I read this for Nonfiction November. My original plan for Nonfiction November was to read 4 books and to match them with the 4 prompt words, which I can't actually remember what they are at the moment. But it's the 21st of November and I've finished 1. So I think I'm throwing that plan out the window and I'm just going to read nonfiction. But this one is quite a well-known science book. Sort of pop science writing rather than this is how science works. It's a bit of a philosophical look at neurological issues that people experience, but it's not even trying to define neurological disease. It's going, here are a series of people who have all experienced something different, and this is my Oliver Sacks's experience with these people. I really liked it when he was talking about his patients or people that he has encountered through his work, even if they aren't directly his patient. But when he started to get to philosophizing about the nature of identity and the nature of truth and the nature of reality and all of those things, he kind of lost me as well when he tried to explain too much about neurology itself, because he tried to do it in a very open-ended kind of way. And I'm like, no, you do a deep dive or you don't mention it, because it got a bit confusing with the different types of book that it tried to be. The best one was when he was talking about the people. I think Oliver Sacks comes across as I think he has a very humanist approach to medicine, and he seems to be the kind of doctor that wants to help the people. He doesn't necessarily want to treat the disease. He talked a lot about, especially towards the end of the book, about how at the time, because a lot of these were written in the mid to late 80s, a lot of the little sections, each section is like a little case study, they were written in the mid to late 80s, and he was like talking about how there was lots of focus on the deficit, and people with neurological issues or developmental delays or whatever were just seen as a deficit person, and there was no attempt to look at or value placed on the things that they could do well. So like, there was a young man who at the 8 had been developing normally, then had a series of seizures at about 8 or 9 and lost the ability to speak, lost the ability to understand concepts, to interact, to socialize. They tried to say at first they were like, he's autistic, but then Oliver Sacks was like, well, autism doesn't happen by injury. It's a developmental thing, so he probably doesn't have autism, but they just saw all of these things that he couldn't do and things he will never do. But this man was an artist. He was a brilliant artist, and nobody allowed him to express himself through his art because they didn't place value on it. And so Oliver Sacks was giving him pens and pencils and paper and taking him for nature walks, and he improved. He started to try to communicate more. He was more interested in people. And Oliver Sacks is saying, he's never going to be able to communicate to the level where he can express anything beyond basic needs. But he's trying, and he's clearly happier and has become more himself. And we're recognizing him as a person with his own personality and identity and skills and means of communicating through his drawing. And I really liked that approach. That felt very real to me. So I liked sections of it. I liked some of the ways that some parts I liked less so. I'm really sorry if it's really noisy in the background. There are 2 earth mover diggers beside our building digging a massive hole in the ground. And I didn't realise how noisy a construction site would be until I moved next to one. But it'll go all day. So if I don't film now, I don't film. I also finished this week the last book in the Pucked series, which I was listening to as audiobooks, hockey romances. They're silly, they're ridiculous, but I enjoyed them, and it was a reread for me, but I got what I needed out of it, and I'm hoping to. I want to get an Audible subscription, I think. And I want to try it for crime books. I think I'm going to try and get into a bit of crime fiction. Anyway, I also had my book club meeting on Wednesday night where we discussed The Octopus and I by Erin Hortle. I was the person with the most love for it in the book club. Not that everyone disliked it, but I liked it the best. I really enjoyed it. Next month, so our December read will be called "A Lonely Girl is a Dangerous Thing" by Jessie 2, I think her name is. I know very little about it other than the fact that it's set in Newtown, which is like 2 suburbs that way, which will be different. I'm not expecting to like that one as much. And so what I have started and what I'm hoping to finish before the end of November is another non-fiction book, and that is Isabella of Castille, Europe's First Great Queen by Giles Tremlett. Is a chunker, so I'm also going to say that if I can finish this will be a Tome Topple book. I've never done Tome Topple before. I tend to find out about Tome Topple like in the last 3 days. I think I just don't follow the right accounts and things. So I want to try and get this done. It's just under, like, the text itself is just under 500. It's 487. But then there's like 150 pages of notes, reference, index and bibliography. But I figure I will probably read some of the notes at least here and there. And anyway, 487 pages is basically 500. So this has been on my shelf for quite some time. When it first came out in hardback, I admired it, and I really desperately wanted it. But it was like nearly $60 as a hardback. It's beautiful. So when it came out in paperback and it was much cheaper, I was very excited, and I purchased it and then put it on my shelf and then just kept looking at it going, it's so big. So I started this the other day. I am on page 48. And it was actually quite a zippy read. I know next to nothing about Isabella of Castille. Actually, I don't think I'd ever heard of her until I saw this book. She, from the family tree, she is the mother of Catherine of Aragon, who's Henry VIII's first wife, the one that he divorced and created the Church of England so that he could divorce her. So I'm really looking forward to reading this. It's quite readable. It's quite zippy. I'm really interested in what was going on in Spain in that time. And there's lots of, I think it sounds so weird to describe it this way, but it feels very world-buildy at the beginning. Like there's sort of Tremlett sort of explaining like the culture of Spain at the time. I'm really interested in the religious makeup of Castille, because they're talking about, there's Christians, there's Muslims, there's Jews, they're all living together, and that was really unusual for Europe at the time, and people were sort of looking at Castille as like, oh, why the hell would you do that? Like, that's terrible. And I think Isabella, I get the impression that she's, as the book continues, I'll realise that she's going to change that and make it Christian. So I'm hoping to get a good chunk of this done this weekend, and then a good chunk of it done next weekend, and then it'll be the end of November and it'll be finished. Actually, I might actually miss out on the end of Tome Topple. I might overshoot Tome Topple to get this finished, because I think Tome Topple ends on the 27th of November. That's fine. I don't care. The rules are made to be broken. Anyway, so that's what I'm currently reading, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.